This is Stephen Brown. I'm going to be talking about growing palms in the landscape. This will be a quick presentation, and here is the content. We're going to look at comparison of palms and trees, and when we do that, we'll take a quick look at roots, stems, and trunks. We're also going to look at selecting palms. Not many selection here, but what I'm trying to set up here is reason why you should grow palms. Then we're going to look at fertilizers and nutrition of palms with a couple of examples. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Palm diseases.
Yeah,
Okay, perhaps whoever is unmuted would kindly mute yourself, please.
Palm diseases, palm insects. I have a short list of the best and worst palms, and we'll quick look at hurricane damage and recovery, and this will tell us a little bit about the morphology or how palm grow, and then finally one slide on cold damage. So understanding that palms are not trees. Palms are what we call monocot, meaning when they germinate, when that seed comes out of the ground, we only have one leaf. That is in contrast to what we call dicots. Dicots are true trees. And of course, this is not just limited to trees, but of course to shrubs, and many monocots are grasses and lilies, etc. So comparing monocots and dicots. This is a dicot, and if you notice right here, when it gets out of the ground, you see this is breaking out, we have two leaves. These are the first two leaves that emerges as the palm comes out of the ground, as a tree comes out of the ground. Now, with regards to a palm, this is a royal palm seedling just popping up out of the ground. And in this case, we see one leaf or one cotyledons in the embryo. The embryo itself is essentially the fruit from which the seed is located. Palms are fibrous. Trees are woody. So fiber is a thread of filament which a plant tissue, mineral or substance or textile is formed. So in essence, you can almost spin or weave the fiber of palms, and you would have basically something like cotton. You can have a textile industry. They consist of characteristic fibers. So here you see, this is me right here. This is a rotted cabbage palm, your sable palmetto, and you can see the fibrous tissues that are exposed. So there are no woody tissue in palms. There is in a conifer or an oak and other such trees, the dicots. We move further along. This would have been the trunk, and this is a fibrous tissue. Now, palm roots are different. They differ greatly from the roots of broadleaves and coniferous trees. So the majority of roots grow laterally near the surface and may extend to 50 feet. So when we fertilize palms and they're growing near a lawn, much of those roots are extended right into the lawn. So when you fertilize the lawn, you're essentially also fertilizing the palms themselves. So let's look at palm roots really quickly. This is on the other county after Hurricane Matthew some years ago. You can see the eroded, there was a surge here, and you can see these are saw palmetto. They've been affected by the salty water, and you can see their roots right here. Now, what I want you to notice is that this is another shot. This is the eroded bank, and these are the roots. So you can see that these roots spread out 50 feet or more, quite a ways. And if you look at them, they're basically string looking. So that means if you had a royal palm a couple of feet from your house, chances are it's not going to damage the foundation because the foundation is strong enough to withstand all of these roots. Now it might, but if it's a royal, it might somewhat buckle the paver, but essentially it's not, these roots are not like oak, they're not like royal poinciana, and they're not like West Indian mahogany that can cause extensive damage. So here I have in my hand one of the primary roots of the palm. The palms do not have roots like dicot roots. They don't have these very, very small roots. And in this particular case, this is a sable palm. It is dug from the field with a machine. And in this case, you can see there's maybe about a foot from here to here. You can still stick this in the ground and it will live. It will live because it is believed that in some cases, for some species, like the cabbage palm, all of the roots die and it has to regrow new roots directly from the trunk. So that is why when you see large palm being transplanted and transported, as long as you water it, it is not that horribly difficult to reestablish it. You won't always be successful, but you have 80–90% chance of being successful. Let me speak a little bit of palm adventitious roots, because you see these in the older palm. And what happened here, as in the case of this foxtail palm, as the palm ages, roots are produced directly from the trunk. And as it ages, the pseudobark, remember, palms do not have true barks like woody plants. So the pseudobark begins to fluff off, and when it does, roots come from the palm. So if you have this garden, if you have this in your garden at your house, if you cover this with mulch, these adventitious roots will begin to grow and they will take life. If you do not do that, what happened is, and this is a case of the adventitious root in a pygmy date, what happened is they actually die back. So the palm doesn't need these adventitious root to stabilize itself, but if you did put soil on top of it or mulch, they will begin to take advantage of the condition and then begin to grow. And here you see some more adventitious roots, and you can typically see this from the Canary Island date palm. So what has happened? The trunk was all the way down to here, and the pseudobark fluffs off, and then roots grow from those points around the trunk itself. And thing about palm is, if you have an old palm that was long established in the landscape, such as a royal, and you grind it out after you cut it down, it is very difficult to plant in that area because the roots are so much that they almost bind the soil. So if you do have roots and you wanted a large palm and you wanted to put some, I don't know, some bedding plants around it, some annuals, it can be very difficult to get those annuals to grow or understory plants to grow well because of this competition from the palm. And this is true, of course, this is more true, of course, with live palms. And even when you take them down, you will still have these roots that have not yet rotted in the soil. And if you don't physically take them out, you have this. So I give you an example real quick about roots here. You see 3 Christmas palm, and here's the third one. This is the small one. The roots of palms do not fuse together. Roots of broadleaf trees can fuse together. That is because the broadleaves have what we call a cambium layer. That is the tissue. When you graft a plant, you use the cambium layer to put the rootstock and the upper portion of the mango or the avocado together. You cannot graft a palm simply because you do not have that layer. So essentially what it means is, in this case, there is fierce competition among palm for the space because they do not share their roots. They do not help each other out in many ways. So what happened here is this third palm, and in some case, one palm in the group is a weak palm and it doesn't do well and survive well. Now you can remedy that situation if you put in a lot of fertilizer input, because this is what they wanted, or this malnutrition palm wanted, was more fertilizer. And of course, judicious watering. Another thing about palm, if we look at the stem, This is a palm that got hit by a car along near Edison Ford Winter Estate, and you can see the tissue right here, split right open. And here's another one. So you see no wood right there. The thing about palm too is that you can have much damage to the palm, and when you look up top at the canopy, the palm may even look great for years. So they can subsist on minimal tissue and keep the top looking relatively healthy. So when palms do get injured though, they cannot heal. Remember, with woody plants like live oak, there is good pruning instruction so that when you prune, and you prune correctly, the tissues on woody trees will heal. They will seal themselves. With palm, it doesn't matter the size of the holes, they will not heal. And if you look at this right here, these are small holes, and these were made by climbing spikes. Now, and in this particular case, the spikes went in and there is sap flowing out of the palm. That will not heal. Here's a worst case situation. This is basal rot of these two palms. And in this case, this is a vertical split of the palm. Vertical split may occur sometimes when there is a excessive amount of water, shrinkage, and then expansion of the tissue, and it cracks it open. Or sometimes it occurs when there is a lightning strike, you get these vertical splits. Palm with crown shaft. What is the significance of that? Real simple. Palm with crown shaft, such as royals or foxtails, the Eureka themselves, we call those self-cleaning palms. So generally speaking, you do not need to get your royal prunes. As you well know, if you have a royal, they have these heavy leaves that will fall, can hurt your car, can hurt yourself. They're really heavy. So crown shaft, and this is the crown shaft right here, it's just above the trunk. These are self-cleaners. Cabbage palm, on the other hand, it has no crown shaft. So this then will accumulate dead leaf. The dead leaves will be persistent. They will form more or less a petticoat. And if you don't prune them away, it would sometimes take years for them to fall off. They will eventually fall as they get older. And as they get older, they generally will not retain the old dead leaves. So in their youth, the leaves are very retentive with regards to palms without crown shafts. And as these leaves fall, remember, it takes 3 leaves to circumvent the trunk. So you have one leaf here, one leaf sharing a third, and another leaf sharing a third. When they all fall, you will have these rings around the palm. These rings do not signify age, but they signify where the leaves were held. And when they fall, they leave these scars, which we call leaf scars. This occurs on many, many types of palms. And they are, in some respect, an ornamental feature. And as some palms get older, the leaf scars disappear. And with persistent leaf or palms without crown shaft, there is no scars on the trunk themselves. So let's look a little bit now on palm selection. And this is what you want to consider. When you grow a palm, you need to consider the final height. You also need to consider the rate of growth and potentially how messy the palm will be. Now, when we speak of mess, it comes in many different forms. It can come from the inflorescence, it can come from the fruit, it can come from leaves, and especially if you have a lot of squirrels or rats around in your neighborhood and they live among the trees, they tend to sharpen their teeth on parts of the fronds or build nests using leaf material, and you get a lot of disengaged leaflets or parts of the leaves coming off the palm. So palms can be messy. And in my opinion, if you have a group of them and they shed leaves all the time, they are actually more work sometimes to maintain than a decent sized oak tree. For at least the oak tree may only be messy to a great extent once a year. But palms, they can shed leaves all year if they're inclined to do so. Then you have to look or examine if the palm is armed or not armed. Usually a palm is armed at the leaf base or at the petioles. And some seemingly armless palms may be armed with fine-toothed petioles. And of course, the phoenix palms, which we have about 5 species here, have long spine. Also, you should examine if the palm is a clustering palm, or if it is a palm with one trunk, such as the Washingtonian or the Bismarck palm and others. And by the way, clustering palm, we have the native saw palmetto. If you leave that alone, it can form basically a good dense ground cover and has to be maintained almost annually to keep it back. Also look at the fertilizer need, the nutritional needs, how much insects and disease problem it potentially may have. And if it's planted too close to a building or in the shade, the trunk might begin to curve, not the leaves, but trunks of palm actually curve if they're in too shady places. You may also want to examine the susceptibility to cold. Now, I have a MacArthur palm in my yard, and I noticed the leaves over the last week or so has turned a purplish color. Have you guys noticed some of your palms? And if not your palms, maybe your firebush, maybe your lantana, or maybe some of the leaves have turned purple. That's usually a plant that is a real tropical. And when the cold weather hits, the leaves may become purple or may even be diseased. And finally, let's look at the distance palms are planted from structure. So in doing this, we're going to examine palms that are closest to the house. And generally what we want for those palms, these are palms that you want to, if you wanted to push up against the house. And of course, this is not a exhaustive list. This is just for you to think about when you make or examine palm and decide which one you want. So for palms that are close to the house, make sure they're short growers. Slow growers are good. They take a while, and make sure they're not very messy. So we want to look at least 2 of these palms, the old man palm and the bottle palm, as palms you can put close to your house. I don't have a picture of the needle palm. I do have a picture in my collection, but not in this presentation. If you haven't seen it before, this is the old man palm. It's from Cuba. It's one of those Coccothrinax palm. It's a very interesting palm. The trunk is very matted. The leaf is a broad fan type leaf, and there is no crown shaft. Very slow grower. It will get to be about 15 feet. And in this apartment unit, you can see that it goes very well growing close to the house. And in saying that, did you notice, can anyone tell me what palm this is? Well, it is the royal palm. I think this one, it may look good, but it is a little too close to this particular building right here. It should really be standing off a little. And here you see bottle palms, and they grow kind of well around here. Sometimes some of them will have their crown shaft kind of shriveled up, but it is a slow growing palm. They don't have many leaves. So in this particular case, this palm may have 5 leaves. I don't know, this one 6, this one 8 to 10, but that's just about it. And so you don't have to do much work with regards to this palm. And you can tell why they call it the bottle palm, because the trunk has the shape of bottles. These are what I call midway palms. You can put out a little bit back from the house. These are short to mid-height palms. They may be slow or moderately fast growers. So we have the Buccaneer palm, the Christmas palm, and the Spindle palm, which is a close relative of the bottle palm. So here's the Buccaneer palm. And this one here is being planted in a garden, and you can see it's just pushing its head out of the ground. This is one of the 11 native Floridian palms. Now we say this is a Florida native, but in truth, it is not native to much of Florida, just what we call the Florida Keys, and you will find it there. But, you know, as long as it can grow in Lee County, we'll take it. And here is one taken a few years ago at the extension office. It is a pretty palm. You can see right here, as we take a closer look, you can see the ring scars. This is where the leaves were held. Remember, 3 leaves form one circular ring. And if you take a good look, the trunk is gray-green. It has a short, wide, blue-green crown shaft, and the leaves are what we call pinnate. And these are ways to distinguish palms. Then we have the Christmas palm, the adventitious, and these are from the Philippines. So when you look at these may actually do better a little bit away from this building right here. These also would be good lining up pathways. They are not very messy. They flower and fruit just about year round, even though they call it the Christmas palm, because it is called the Christmas palm because many of the fruits, or the drupes as they're called, turn red around Christmas, but in truth, it happens all year. So then if you look at it, these are what we call solitary palms, but in this case, they've planted 2 palms together, 2 palms together. This is an unnatural state, so they're sharing the same space right here, and they will shed their leaves automatically because they have a crown shaft. They have crown shafts, so these are self-cleaners. This is a good palm to choose. And here we see some more. They can get fairly tall. They're not going to get much taller than what we see right here. And actually, this does make a good impression around the house. So if you look right here, these are the inflorescence, and the inflorescence, by the way, and the fruits and the fruits that follows the inflorescence, you can cut them off at any time of the year, and there is no harm. So you can remove the fruit stalk and the flower stalk any time of the year to prevent fallen fruits, as it would right here, and to make a cleaner presentation to your landscape. Now, when we look at this leaf right here, I'm just bringing this out, and this leaf right here, and this leaf right here, and this leaf right here, just from looking at these leaves are falling naturally. There is no disease in these leaves. I can just tell by the way they're falling. So the big thing is, with regards to palms that have crown shaft, with regards to leaf fall, if the leaves fall quickly within like a couple of weeks when it begins to brown, then you have a healthy leaf or a healthy canopy, so to speak, or that leaf was healthy. But if the leaf brown, yellows, and it's like that for months and just keep going on, it is an unhealthy leaf and probably an unhealthy palm. So these are good, and the canopy is not that bad. And you know, in this case, you can see that the canopy is not very wide, and there are not a lot of leaves per palm. So that may be a good feature too. And then this is the palm, Spindle Palm. This one is related to the bottle palm, and you can see the resemblance. And this is a wall of somebody's wall to their house, and it gives a nice effect right here. So these are Spindle Palm. There are not many leaves. The growth rate is moderately, it is slow, but not very slow. If you look at it here, here are two that are planted together. This is planted just appropriately from the house. And if you look at the stout gray closely ringed trunk, and finally you see the crown shaft. Now, let's go a little bit closer to this house while I'm speaking right here. This palm right here, young as it is a sable palm. This is a Florida native palm. Probably not the best place for this palm because it will grow fairly tall, it will seed, and you will have a lot of germinating palm. This palm right here is an Eureka palm. It is not in very good health, but the thing about Eurekas are clustering palm. You have a window here and a window here, and if this is a healthy Eureka palm, even if it's not that healthy, you're going to get a lot of sprouts coming out of here, and they block the view of the window. So this is not the ideal place for this palm, nor would I say even this palm. But you know, sometimes they look great and there's nothing wrong. If you like it there, then it's fine. Okay, we're still on palm selection, and these are palms that are grown further back from the house. And these palms are normally the taller palms. They have moderate or fast growth rate. They generally have this massive trunk. This trunk, they're so heavy that if they fell on your car, there is severe damage. Even if they fall on your roof or your lanai, they can cause severe damage if they're in the right position to do so. They're messy. They can be messy. They have heavy fruit loads. They have large or heavy fronds. And such palms are the Carpenteria, which is not the worst. We can include the coconut palm, the Canary Island date palm, Bismarck palm, Senegal date palm, and you all know what a royal is. A royal palm looks like, and I don't have a picture of one in this presentation. So here's a Carpenteria palm. It's really a nice palm. It grows very well here. This is close to Lakes Park. This picture here, as a matter of fact, this is Lakes Park over here. And they're growing these as street trees. So the Carpenteria is from Australia. It's a fast grower. And as you can see here, see how tall that is? They can get very tall. The trunk are skinny, but when they produce fruits, see right there? These are the fruit stalks. That is a lot of fruits or drupes falling from the Carpenterias. If you look at this, there are at least 4 or 5 fruit stalks on each of these. And these are seasonal. These produce the fruit stalks seasonally. And I will tell you there are probably about 500 seeds on each palm. So there are a lot. So in one season, you will probably get several thousand that will fall from these 4 palms. And a coconut palm, you buy coconut in the store. This is the coconut with the husk. And from the husk, you get a new sprout. If you remove the husk, it will never sprout. So the origin is the Pacific Island. I think these two are perhaps a little too close to the house because you got to be careful of nuts, because some of these palms, they're really prolific. Coconut palms can become very prolific. The fronds can be very large, and when the fronds get old, if you don't cut them off, they droop, and they can droop in the walkway or towards the walkway. So this may not be the best, and of course they will droop also on the roof of the houses. Here is another coconut palm. This is probably the Jamaican tall, so it's well suited for this location. And here is another palm right here. This is another coconut palm. So yeah, coconut gives it this tropical feel. And you know, a healthy palm, depending on the species, will have a certain minimum number of leaves. So if this was an unhealthy coconut palm and there were only 5 leaves, and I'm not saying if they were not pruned, if they were not pruned and it's healthy, it should have at least a dozen leaves, many more leaves. And in the right condition, in the real tropics, these leaves may be bigger and there may be more of them. Remember, many of our palms that we plant here are not native. We have them in poor soils. When they're in poor soils, what do we mean by poor soils? Generally speaking, these are bedrock material. There is high calcium, there may be high phosphorus, there is low nitrogen, there is low iron, there is low magnesium. So the soils themselves are generally pretty poor compared to the native soil of many of these plants. So when that happens, the palm cannot pick up enough nutrients out of the ground. And when that happens, they suffer from nutritional deficiency. So here's a Canary Island date palm. When it's about this size, in the old days, they used to call these a pineapple palm. And as they get older, so this one is not the healthiest, but it's not too bad. And this is a giant one. This is a little too close to the house. And of course, you see they prune them up here to leave this. Now, this is what we call over pruning, and we don't recommend it for several reasons. You can induce a nutritional deficiency because the leaves are used for photosynthesis to make food for the plant. And you can also expose these to invasion by weevils. And these are insects that can plague some of these palms. This palm in the background is your typical royal palm. And another large palm is the Bismarck palm. This one here is definitely too close to the house. It looks good. It has a widespread, nice color, and this one is not even that tall. See this right here? It's not that tall. That can get twice that height, and these are heavy. This palm, as it gets old, this is what you're going to notice. And if you have one of these, and it's about this age, this is very noticeable. The older leaves, this one, although it doesn't have a crown shaft, it is more or less self-cleaning nevertheless. But this is how it cleans itself. The older leaves will droop, and instead of falling individually, as you saw in the Christmas palm that I show you those 4 together with healthy leaves that were falling, these healthy leaves, as they fall, they actually accumulate on the trunk. So when you drive around and you see a Bismarck palm with 4, 5, or 6 leaves just flopping down on the trunk, it is quite natural for that palm. And then the next day when you wake up, all 4, 5, 6 leaves will be right here on the ground. So they accumulate, and then they weaken, and the leaves fall in small groups. Some palms have male and females. So this palm itself, this species, the Bismarck, there are male plants and female plants. Both produce flowers. The flowers of the females are pollinated, and mostly all palms are pollinated by bees. So if you have a palm, bees love them. And these palms will produce the drupes or the fruits. They will drop, germinate, big problem on the lawn sometimes. And the male plants, although they don't produce drupes, the inflorescence, parts of the inflorescence as they fall, they're black, they're coily, and they will create a mess themselves on the ground. So both the male and the female will create a mess on your lawn. And of course, you wouldn't want this one too close to your house. It is a Senegal date palm from West Africa. This is a clumping palm. So what you're looking at here is a single unit, a single palm, and the leaf themselves, the base of the leaves, are particularly armed. They have long spines, difficult to prune. Even if suckers were coming up here, they're difficult to keep under control. So this is one palm that you may want to hesitate. Plus, palm like this also has their own problem. They have caterpillar problems quite often. So they will get in there. These are called leaf skeletonizers. And they also have fungal problem. They have Ganoderma problem, etc. Let's do a quick look. Let me look at the chat line, see if I can answer a question, or can, let's see right here. Where's my chat? Can the moderator read me a chat question, 2 or 3? Are there any?
Babu wants to say he was my master gardener teacher.
Well, that's not a legitimate question.
The question, if it was directed to you, evidently, I cannot read it. So if anyone has a question now that, oh, here we go. Debbie, if you have a question for Stephen, send it to me and I'll read it to him. Debbie Haggett is asking, he was asking you to switch to slide view rather than speaker view. Do we have any questions about palms that you'd like to ask Stephen? Just send it to the chat, just direct it to Donna or to everyone.
So what are people seeing as they look at my presentation?
Okay.
Are you seeing one screen or
No,
more?
we see your main screen and the next animation.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see right here.
Okay. So Rachel Epp asks or says, my royal palms look wilted. They are established. Our house is 4 years old. The old ones by the street look worse than the ones near my house. Do they need more water? They get fertilized regularly.
No, they don't need more water. I don't think that's the problem. I will ask her, how long have they been in the ground? I would look at nutritional deficiency, because nutritional deficiency may give the appearance of a palm that is underwater stress. So one of the best thing to do tomorrow, if you can, send me several pictures of that condition, because one thing I've learned, it is difficult to assess what's wrong with a palm without some pictures, because nutritional can be confused with disease and vice versa, and they can be confused with insects and poor environmental condition. So there's a lot of things going on. Now, do you see one screen at this point?
Yes.
Okay. It's better when it's this way, isn't it?
Yeah. Excuse me, Stephen, perhaps you could give us the address for them to send the, a picture of a problem palm. What address should they use?
I will give it now, but it will be on the last slide.
Okay.
And that address is brownsh@leagov.com, but it will be on the last slide.
Okay.
Okay. UF recommendation as far as fertilizer is concerned. Some palms need it more than others, and it is better you prevent a deficiency than try to correct it. But the general recommendation is an analysis of 8, 2, 12, and 4. The 8 is 8% nitrogen, 2% phosphorus, 12 potassium, and magnesium is 4. Now, Florida soil generally have a lot of phosphorus, so we may not need any phosphorus in our palm fertilizer, hence 8, 0, 12, 4. Nutrient deficiencies, as I've said, are more easily prevented than corrected once they occur. Correction of deficiencies can take 2 or 3 years, and you know what? By the time I see some of these pictures, it's too late. You may as well just take out the palm, because I don't think many individuals have the patience waiting around for 2 or 3 years for the palm to correct itself. And in many cases, it cannot correct itself. The problem is too far gone. It is essential that 100% of the N, potassium, and magnesium be in the slow release form. As you know, fertilizers, there are many ways to divide fertilizers. You can make fertilizers, this nitrogen, that is either slow release or fast release. And what we're saying here is, if you formulate a palm fertilizer, it is best that the N, K, and magnesium be slow release. Why? because our soil have scant amount of these nutrients in many cases. And when we have the summer rain, if you put a soluble or fast release fertilizer down, in a couple of weeks, it's gone. And also in many municipalities, there is what we call the blackout period. And the blackout period means generally in Lee County from June through September, where those are many months, no phosphorus or nitrogen fertilizers is permitted except under certain circumstances. So we recommend application with a good fertilizer in February, May, and November. And the fertilizer amount will depend on how much trunk the palm has, the height of the trunk, more than even the diameter of the trunk. And so one single palm may take up to 6 pounds of fertilizer in one application. Okay, and
there's a quick question about
yes.
fertilizer. Sylvia is asking, what do you think of the prepackaged palm fertilizers that you can get at places like Home Depot?
Usually those are good marketing fertilizers. They are not usually the university blend of 8-2-12-4. They're usually not slow release as far as the nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium. So they, for the most part, 95% of them are not the recommended fertilizer. The 4 most commonly deficient nutrients for palms are boron, potassium, magnesium, and manganese. So let's look at boron deficiency real quick. And boron has about 7 or 8 different deficiency symptoms. So I'm going to point out the 3 most common. Number 1, if you look at the leaves as it emerges, the leaflets, which are these, are hooked. So you see that right there? Can everyone see my pointer, or?
No, the pointer doesn't seem, oh, now we can, okay. There you go.
So you see this hook right here. And this is what they call the leaflet tips are hooked. So as it comes out, and this would have been the rachis or the midrib, you see how it is bent? So this is an example of boron deficiency. And boron deficiency affects the new growth. So the new growth is affected. And the second sign of deficiency are the spear leaf. So these are the spear leaf, and they're tightly fused, and they do not open on time. Now, on a healthy palm, on a healthy foxtail as this one is unhealthy, only about 1 or 2 spear leaf, those are the unopened leaves, will be on a palm. So in this case, we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 spears that are not open. It is definitely boron deficient. If we take a look at the third symptoms I wanted to emphasize here, you see right there, this is what we call the crown that is bent in one direction. This particular palm here, these are both solitaire palm. This one is normal, even though you can't see the rest of it. But if you look at this one, the crown is bent. And this is an easy sign of boron deficiency. You commonly see this sometimes in queen palms. You will see it in royal palms. You will see it in several other palms that typically show the sign or symptom of boron deficiency. So this is a severe case, probably not going to be cured. This one can be cured, and this might be cured after only about a month rather than 2 years. So this is relatively easy to cure. And this one here is about mid-range as far as getting better. This one, you might as well forget it. Are you guys seeing lines on the screen too?
Yes. The red streaks.
Yeah, it's all over, isn't it?
That happened to me 2 meetings ago. I don't know what it is.
Well, you know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to use a pointer then, because it's making it happen. I guess we got to learn more about this thing.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Stephen, someone is asking, where would you buy then the properly formulated fertilizer, or what you recommend?
You know what you do? There is a company called Howard Fertilizer. There is also Riverland Nursery over in Fort Myers. Site One in Cape Coral, there's a company called Site One Nursery Supply or Landscape Supply. They may have it. And so there are particular facilities that do have them. But I do know if you wanted to travel that far, you can go to Riverland Nursery on Palm Beach Boulevard in East Fort Myers, and they will have it. Okay, this one is potassium deficiency. You can't see my finger, can you?
No.
Okay. And in this particular case, you can see the leaves, the older leaves are affected first, and they're affected from the tip to the base. And when this happens, the older leaves become necrotic or the edges become dead, as you can see here. This is potassium deficiency, meaning the roots are not able to pick up enough potassium from the soil. And when we look here, here's another example. This is reduced numbers of leaves in the canopy. So I do have a picture of necrotic translucent spots, but I didn't present it in this. I was in a rush to finish this PowerPoint up. And if you look at manganese deficiency symptoms, the emergent leaflets are corrotic and necrotic. This is what we call frizzle top. So in this royal palm right here, take a look. You see the new leaves are frizzle. And as the palm age, the new leaves become old leaves. And you can see the old leaves are also frizzle. It doesn't matter how much fertilizer you put on these palms. What's done is done. So the damage is done. So when you put fertilizer in these palms, your objective is not to correct leaves that are already affected. The objective is to cure leaves that are inside the crown shaft that are embryonic, or leaves that are not even yet embryonic. So if you can give the palm enough manganese, that will help to correct it. Now, manganese deficiency can kill palms. Boron deficiency can kill palms. Potassium deficiency can kill palms. I would say that half of the palms that are dying because of nutritional deficiency. And remember what I said, even though the royal palm is native, where it is being grown, as in the case of this roadway medium, it is not being grown on the native soil condition. Because the bedrock, even though it's a Florida bedrock, it is not soil, it is crushed material that is laid on top of the ground for construction and for roadway purposes. So it is something totally different. Let's look at a couple of palm diseases. And usually what we say, once a palm is dead, it tells no story. Sometimes it does tell stories. Sometimes it does, as in the case of Ganoderma. And in this case, you have a cabbage palm and you have a Washingtonian palm. If I were to guess, that cabbage palm probably died because of a disease called trunk rot or thaliviopsis. That Washington palm probably died because of weevils. Those are my guess, but I'm not sure. So let's look at Ganoderma butt rot. This is a fungal disease. It is not preventable and it is incurable. So once a palm gets Ganoderma butt rot and you see those conchs coming out on the bottom 3-4 feet of the trunk, it is a dead palm. The fungus is not spread by a pruning tool and is not associated with the leaves. So if you had a palm with Ganoderma, you can prune the leaves and it will not spread the disease. If a conch is on the palm, it is best to remove the palm as soon as possible, because those conchs, those growth on the bottom of the palm, will be active and will be releasing spores into the air. Do not replant palms of any type in the infected area where Ganoderma was present. So if we look at Ganoderma, it starts out something like this. So these are new conchs. They come out pure white and practically golf ball size. And at this point, the conchs are not sporulating, so they're still young. But even so, at this point, the palm is dead. It is a standing dead palm. So what we're seeing here is Ganoderma, which is a fungal disease. It feeds on living tissues, and the living tissues is inside the palm, and it will be feeding for a couple of years. Finally, it breaks out and has to reproduce. So how does it reproduce? Well, you're looking at it right here. It produces these conchs. So these are active conchs on the bottom of a Canary Island date palm. And Canary Island, Eureka, Bismarck, Washingtonian, they're just plagued sometimes with Ganoderma butt rot. And finally, the conchs can get old, as in this case. By the time it gets this old, that means the palm is probably already so weak that it may be tilting. So if you see a palm that is beginning to tilt, look for Ganoderma to see if there's any conchs there. If there is, you should take it down because the bottom is undermined. Remember, Ganoderma doesn't go to the top. That's why we can use your pruning tools and still cut off the leaves. But if you undermine the trunk, the source where it is connected to the soil from which it feeds, it will tilt, bend, and may fall over. So you kill the bottom, you kill the head. In this particular case, this is several years ago at the Cape Coral Hospital. You can see a relatively healthy Canary Island date palm on the left and a conch or Ganoderma affected palm on the right. If you notice something here, you'll notice that the older leaves are affected first, the spear leaf and the younger leaves are affected last. And here's the conch, that one of the conch that is or was on this particular palm. And to your right, you see that palm that is partially hidden by that light post. That is a Washingtonian palms. So what I'll do is I'll try to point out some palms in the background if there are any there as we go along. So here's another disease. This is on queen palm, but it also affects in a different light Canary Island. This is Fusarium wilt of queen palm. It kills the palm quickly, usually within a few weeks or months of the initial symptoms. And what happens? Well, the oldest leaves turn brown first, but they do not break. The next 2 to 3 youngest leaves in the canopy will turn yellow. Then the entire canopy appears freeze dry. That means all of the leaves in the canopy, they're dead. They're freeze dried. And the disease is spread by wind and tools. So unlike Ganoderma, in this case, you need clean pruning tools. So let's look at one right here. This is a queen palm disease. And if you look at this queen palm, it's 100% all the leaves are affected by Fusarium wilt. And you notice that they basically are in the position of what healthy leaves would be in. So they're freeze dry on the canopy. But eventually, as you can see one coming, leaning down or drooping, they will eventually fall. Here is it in another stage. And finally, it becomes this total collapse of the fronds and dead palm. Now, what I noticed with this particular disease, it usually affects queen palms in small clusters in one community. That's usually what happens. So if you have 100 palms in a community that are queen, maybe only 20 will die in this phase of the disease, and the other 80 will survive.
Excuse me, Stephen, we're almost out of time. I'm wondering
I'm
if you can
speed
move
it up.
towards your finale.
Yes, I will. There's Fusarium.
Thank you.
And disinfect. This is palm weevil, which is pretty common. See how fast I can go? And here it is right here. And if you look at the center, the heart of the palm is already collapsed, and the leaves look pretty, they look still pretty green. But this is palmetto weevil. It is, by the way, a native palm. The adult weevils and grub, and in this particular case, in this weevil case, the grubs are smaller than the adults. And the weevil feeds in the heart of the palm and kills the palm. Once you kill the heart, remember, you've killed the palm. And in my opinion, the easiest palm to grow are cabbage or sable palm, which is a native, the Christmas palm, the spindle palm, and another native, the Florida thatch palm. Now, there are other easy palms to grow, which we don't see much of, such as the needle palm and saw palmetto if you really wanted to grow that. This is my list of the most troublesome palms. I have 4 listed. They are foxtail, royal palm, Eureka palm, and queen palm. A lot of foxtail are planted, and a lot of them have developed nutritional deficiency, ambrosia beetles, Ganoderma, and not too much weevils, but still that's enough. Real quick, this is Hurricane Charlie, 2004. These 3 palms are stripped. December 2004, they're coming back. And 2007, or even before, the leaves are back on. So if there's a hurricane and the leaves of palms are stripped off, it doesn't mean they're dead. And crown shaft, you can cut it. If you cut the crown shaft, the palm will probably come back. If it's a palm with a crown shaft, if you cut into the trunk, it's dead. And finally, this is Eureka Palm. We haven't had much cold damage with palms lately, but this Eureka row came back nice and easy, even though the leaves are dead, because the interior leaves were still good. This is me, by the way. And there's my email address, brownsh@legov.com. You'll see my phone number next to it. And if you have an Instagram account, I want to drive the numbers up. So please subscribe, if that's what they call it. And that address is Lee_UFIFAS. And what I do, I try to post flowering and fruiting and problem plants, about 3 or 4 posts a week. Any questions?
Okay, there was one question that, is there a palm that can be planted in a really big pot inside the pool cage?
In a really big pot? Yeah, there are some. There is the, what do they call that palm? Well, a bottle palm does well if you wanted to do that. Eureka palm, no, I wouldn't do it. There is the cat palm, CAT palm, that's a clustering palm. And you can put, there is a palm that they used to grow in Victorian days. They call it a parlor palm, P-A-R-L-O-R, I think, palm. Just look that up, and it's called the Kintie palm, K-I-N-T-I-E, I believe, palm. That can be grown in pots. But yeah, there are several palms that do okay in pots, certainly.
And one last quick question. This will be the last one. They're asking about hurricane cuts, what you think of them.
Hurricane cuts is not good. Hurricane cuts are usually performed in May, just before the hurricane season, to quote, cut down on flying fruits and flying leaves. Not recommended, because we don't often get hurricane as you might think. And also, cutting back on these green leaves actually damage the photosynthesis ability of the palm, and the palm may develop nutritional deficiency. That's one bad thing about it. So there you go. Now you did see my coconut palm that got hit by hurricane Charlie, where all the leaves fell off.
Right.
That does happen during hurricanes. So, you know, just be aware of that. That can happen. But all in all, we don't recommend it because of the nutritional lack thereof.